No, not yet. I'm waiting. Ladies and gentlemen, our program will begin shortly. Please take your seats. Once again, our program will begin shortly. Please take your seats. Thank you.
Oh yeah, so you can see how. Right there, that's great. Thank you. That's my second one.
Ready? Ladies and gentlemen, our program will begin shortly. Please take your seats. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. As a reminder, please silence all electronic devices. Once again, our program will begin shortly. Thank you.
Brad.
That's great.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get started. We have a great panel this afternoon, and I know we also all want to get over to the reception tonight. I hope you had another great group of workshops, and really appreciate the panelists who have been so generous with their time to come in and talk to us about, the great work that they're doing. So this important panel about promoting financial health is sponsored by the Prudential Foundation. And the National Fund has had a very close and productive relationship with the Prudential Foundation. They provided us with a substantial grant 3 years ago that allowed us to kick off what we called Better Skills, Better Jobs. And that enabled us to do a lot of work around the early stages of good jobs and job quality and understanding what we had to do and how we could, expand and deepen that work across our network. So it's delightful for me to have the opportunity to introduce Sarah Kay, the Director of Corporate Giving for the Prudential Foundation. Sarah?
all so much. It's a pleasure to be here. As Fred mentioned, we've been an investor in the National Fund for almost 10 years, so it's really exciting to see where we all have come today. As some of you know, Prudential was founded more than 140 years ago to give working families a way to protect their financial well-being by providing affordable insurance. Our first product was burial insurance that cost as little as 3 cents a week to provide working families a way to bury their families with a peace of mind. So we were essentially a social enterprise before that term was even coined. More than a century later, we've put our financial and human capital to work to ensure that everyone has the opportunity to build financial security. But in these challenging times, we know that that opportunity gap is widening, particularly for low-income, underserved communities. And that opportunity to build financial security begins with preparing and connecting people to quality jobs. A quality job includes livable wages, safe working conditions, benefits that include health insurance, retirement funds, paid leave, stable working schedules, and career advancement opportunities. But there are not enough good jobs out there, particularly for low-income populations. As you heard from the previous panel, improving job quality is not just an economic imperative, it's a moral and human imperative. For the individual, it improves that individual's health, it increases their life expectancy, and provides a better quality of life and opportunity for future generations. And for the employer, a quality job increases productivity, lowers turnover, and improves reputation for the company as a manufacturer and an employer of choice. Because of this focus from our company, we embarked, as Fred mentioned, about 3 years ago on a new initiative called Better Skills and Better Jobs to identify business practices that improve job quality for low-wage frontline workers. And you heard about some of the work in terms of this case studies that Steve Dawson had created with Universal Woods. And today I'm happy to announce that just yesterday that we approved a new $2 million grant to the National Fund for Better Skills, Better Jobs 2.0. In the second phase of this work, the National Fund will invest in 6 more communities to work with over 20 employers to help improve employment practices and build the capacity of the regional collaboratives to effectively engage and assist businesses through this process. This also continues to build on our first part of the work and then the investments that the Hitachi Foundation has made. In addition, our grant will support the National Fund to work with all partner communities to provide resources and tools to address the financial wellness of employees. You'll hear more about this in the panel, but as research shows, more than 57% of employees who are currently working are stressed about their financial situation. Working people need stable jobs, but they also need access to financial tools and resources to build their assets so they are able to weather financial emergencies and invest in the future. The National Fund will help collaboratives identify the financial stressors impacting workers today in their communities and build solutions together with their employers to reduce that financial stress and improve the financial bottom line for both employees and employers. Companies like Prudential have an imperative and an opportunity to play a vital role in bridging that financial security gap and building a shared prosperity for all communities. So that we're so very excited to deepen our work with the National Fund, and now that I'm going to turn it over to Maureen and the rest of the panelists for this next.
Thank you, Sarah, and congratulations to the National Fund and for the grant, and also for the fabulous work that you've been doing around connecting people to work and quality jobs. It's really been a tremendous contribution, and it's an honor to be here and to have the opportunity to sit with our great panelists and talk about this issue of financial wellness in particular. And this is an important topic because financial wellness is a critical component, as Sarah mentioned, not only to employee productivity at work, but to the financial success of households. And the financial success of households is a key building block for strong families, communities, and ultimately for our economy and our society. And we know that many households today are not feeling well, financially speaking. The Federal Reserve, many of you may have seen, did a survey of household economics and decision making, and they found that nearly half of American families don't have $400 in an emergency. They would have to sell something or borrow to come up with it. That 31% of non-retired adults, including 27% of non-retired respondents aged 60 or older, have no retirement savings whatsoever, nor do they have a pension. Nearly a third of Americans say that they are either finding it difficult to get by or just getting by financially. So a lot of people are not feeling particularly financially well, and this is an issue that needs attention. And so I'm glad that I have this great panel here with me to talk about what are some ideas and solutions on the financial wellness front. And so let me briefly introduce them to you, and we'll get started. So to my far left, to your right, is Anthony Smith, Vice President, Project Management at Worksite Education with Prudential Insurance Group. Anthony has over 19 years of experience, all of which have been in sales and servicing of group insurance customers. And Anthony is responsible for leading Prudential Pathways, an on-site financial wellness education program for group insurance, serving as the key contact and business partner with Worksite Education lead at Prudential Advisors. So glad to have you with us, Anthony.
Thanks for having me. Good afternoon, everyone.
Next to Anthony is Dan Osusky, Director of Standards at B-Lab, a global nonprofit that serves people using business as a force for good. As Director of Standards, Dan oversees the B Impact Assessment, the social and environmental performance tool used to certify B Corporation and issue GEARS ratings, and he'll tell us what that means in a little bit. And Brian Lang, next to me, currently serves as president of Unite Here, Local 26, Boston's Hotel and Food Service Union. Brian has spent a total of 17 years representing the union's 7,000 members, starting as organizing director and eventually being elected as president in 2011. So welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
And Anthony, I'm going to start with you. You've been at Prudential for quite a while now, and can you just give us a quick overview of your work? And sort of Sarah kind of outlined that Prudential's sort of always been in the financial wellness business, but how has that role changed and how the company thinks about financial wellness? How have you seen that change recently?
Sure. Before I start, I just want to say I'm honored to be here. I was at the last panel and just listened to all the great work that everyone's doing here. And it's an honor to be with Prudential, they're investing in all this great work. So as you mentioned, I've been with Prudential for 19 years. I'm currently responsible for Worksite Education, which is creating tools and capabilities as well as education to provide to employers so that they can provide those tools, the education to their employees on Worksite. For the first 16 years or so that I was with Prudential, I was on the sales and account management side where we actually sold group life and disability products. And during that time, while we were always invested in helping American workers achieve financial wellness, we were very much product driven, right? We spoke product, we talked product with our customers, and when you're thinking just product, you kind of lose sight of the bigger picture, right? So you had Prudential Group Insurance, you had Prudential Retirement, you had Prudential Investment, so we all kind of worked in our own silos. Since doing this great work, the change that I've seen is now that we've kind of moved away from product and have graduated to the bigger picture of more of the financial wellness. It changes your mind, it changes the way we go out to market, it changes our approach. We understand the bigger picture. We understand that it's not just product, but it's to help people understand the purpose, the need for financial wellness. And financial wellness doesn't just apply. I think, even when the years, when I tell you about my sales years, when you think about financial wellness, you thought about, growing your money. And you thought about the folks that could grow money, which particularly you thought people who had money. And that's not necessarily true. We all need to grow our money. We all are going to run into the same type of issues. When you talk about the statistics that you read earlier, we all have some kind of financial concerns that we have to address. And so being a part of this financial wellness spirit, collaboration with all of the different businesses within Prudential, because we are positioned to provide a holistic financial wellness package. It's changed the way we approach our customers. It's changed the way we feel when we go to approach our customers. We kind of feel more committed to doing something good. And I've just seen a change in the company, and that's been over the past 3 or 4 years. So it's a great time at Prudential. It's important, and it really aligns well with all the work that everyone else here is doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian, I'm going to come to you next. So, Anthony kind of talked about how they're seeing the the different products in a more holistic picture. You lead a union of workers, and they probably see this as a holistic picture when they think about their financial lives. Tell us a little bit about your work and how you see what the issues you see in employee financial wellness.
Well, again, it's really an honor to be here also. This is a new type of forum for me, so you'll find it as interesting as I will, I'm sure. We're a union of 10,000 members. We're in the hospitality industry, which is food service workers, hotels, and soon to be gaming up in the Boston area. We've grown from about 4,500 to the 10,000 in the last 6 years. So we've grown with the industry, and we really pride ourselves in the collaborative relationships that we've built with employers. And some of the things that we've been able to do is come up with creative ways to rein in healthcare costs. We've developed a defined benefit pension plan that I'm going to talk about a little later. That was the first of its kind in the nation. We also deal with the issues of immigration. We have a large immigrant workforce, and we've worked together to make sure our immigrant workforce is protected. We deal with issues of diversity. We actually have a citywide diversity task force where employers at the highest level of the city sit down and work with the union to do recruitment and training through a training center. We have, in my opinion, the best hospitality training center in the U.S. And so all of those things are really good, and what we strive to improve upon all of them. But at the same time, there's challenges to them. The challenges in the market, market forces bearing down on employers. Hotels, like this one that we're in, used to be owned by people who really believed in hospitality and had pride in hospitality, and now they're really nothing more than real estate investments. The operators of the hotels still believe in it, but the owners tend to be private equity companies or real estate investment trusts, and they look at the bottom line in a lot different way. Just to give you an example, for every extra dollar of labor cost, there's a formula that when you go to sell the property, you take $13 off the price, the selling price. So another million, every million extra in labor costs is 13 off the selling price. So that creates a tension, and as we know, to have genuine collaboration, we have to be equal partners. So sometimes we find ourselves as a union asserting that we want to be equal, and so we have these things called strikes from time to time. We had one with the second richest nonprofit in the world. Some people think of it as an educational institution. I think of it as a financial institution that does some education on the side. It's Harvard University. Last fall, $36 billion endowment, and the lowest paid workers on the campus, Harvard fought a demand for a $35,000 minimum annual income and not to shift healthcare costs onto the workers. Now, we had a strike. Harvard decided that it didn't make sense to pursue their initial aims, and we're back to collaboration. So it's a beautiful thing. Health and financial wellness. Health and financial wellness is really part of our core mission. And just to give you an example, in the Boston unionized hotels today, a hotel housekeeper makes $21.41 an hour. And then if you wrap in all of the benefits, with defined benefit pension plan, free training, free family health, legal plan, a housing program, wrapped in, it costs the employers $31 an hour for every hour worked from that hotel housekeeper. But evidently our employers think it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Great, excellent, thank you. So Dan, let's talk about B-Lab a little bit. It's I mentioned it's a nonprofit that has some standards thing. So tell us a little bit about B-Lab and what you do as director of those standards, and how does employee financial wellness fit in that picture?
I actually think you nailed it. I don't know if I have anything else to add. We have the standards thing, and that's it.
That's it. Yeah. That's how I describe my evaluation work too. Yeah.
The lights are a little bright up here, but I want to start actually with a quick show of hands. Who's familiar with B-Lab? And who's familiar with B Corps? People might be more familiar with that. Okay, so a fair amount. So we are a nonprofit, and our mission is to redefine success in business. So as we say it, companies compete to be the best for the world, not just to be the best in the world. That sounds very abstract and also very ambitious, but what that ultimately boils down to is 3 key pillars in our work, that is building an infrastructure and an ecosystem for businesses to be a part of the solution for the world's most pressing social and environmental problems, versus sometimes being a part of the problem, some would argue. The first key pillar that we do is identify leaders in this movement, and we call them certified B corporations. So they are the companies that have been frequently doing this much longer than B-Lab has actually ever existed. And we want to put them up on a pedestal to be both a model and an inspiration for other businesses to follow. There are over 2,000 certified B Corps around the world, ranging from small sole proprietors to multi-billion-dollar publicly traded companies. Some of the most recognizable ones are going to be companies like Patagonia and Ben & Jerry's, or in the workforce space, we were just talking about a company like Grayston Bakery based in Yonkers that has an open hiring program where any individual, regardless of their past experience or their background, is able to enter into their apprenticeship program to get a quality job. In addition to identifying these leaders that we call B Corps, we identified basically 2 systemic issues in this ecosystem that's a barrier for companies to sort of follow in their footsteps. The first is a legal issue, in that there is a legal requirement for companies to pursue shareholder value, meaning when we talk about addressing social and environmental problems, companies are actually only able to do so to the extent that they're able to justify it as maximizing profit. And so just to think about that for a second, Sarah mentioned the moral imperative of these topics. When we think about it as a moral imperative, a company is actually not allowed to justify their decisions in a moral imperative, as a moral imperative. Likewise, a company, when you're working for a company, they are only able to provide good benefits, good pay, et cetera, for the purpose of maximizing shareholder value. That's an interesting dynamic with the actual workers when you think about what that actually reduces a company to. That is pretty restrictive for businesses when they think about these topics. There's debate about how restrictive it is, but nonetheless, there's a discrepancy between how a lot of companies want to think about and act, why they do things, and what the legal infrastructure actually allows. To address that issue, we've actually been involved in policy work, which is creating a new corporate form called a benefit corporation. And that benefit corporation type of corporate form is now available. It actually was just signed in Texas today by Governor Abbott, which I believe is the 34th state in the United States. It's also available in Italy as well as elsewhere. And that corporate structure requires companies to consider all stakeholders in their decision making and not just shareholders. The second barrier that we've seen is that companies who are even interested in this, even potentially the leaders, have struggled to identify ways to systematically measure and improve their performance. They really don't know where to begin, or they don't know where to take the incremental steps. And so what we've done is developed a tool called the B Impact Assessment that's free and it's publicly available. And it's a holistic measure of a company's performance around their worker practices, their community engagement, their environmental footprint, et cetera. That is where my role as the Director of Standards fits in that we are constantly collecting what are best practices of companies as well as the great research and thought leadership of other organizations, all probably in this room, and thinking about how we can operationalize those into a set of questions and best practices and metrics to educate and encourage companies to improve step by step on that framework. And so obviously as a comprehensive assessment, we've got a lot of different topics in there, but the worker section that's included in there, which is a fundamental component of how we understand a company's overall impact, is essentially an indicator of the overall job quality that a company is providing to all of their workers. And so a component of that is financial wellness that includes metrics around not only just paying above a minimum wage, but whether companies are paying at a living wage or above, which that data is fortunately well available in the United States, as well as the offerings of benefits, not just whether they are available, but to the extent to which they are actually adopted and used as an indicator of the quality of those benefits, and then incremental services that are provided to actually support savings programs and things like that.
Great, thank you. So as you can see, we have a nice mix of perspectives on this panel. We have somebody whose business is, really providing products to other businesses to improve their employee financial wellness. We have a labor organizer and a labor union. We have somebody who's challenging the corporate form. So we have some very different perspectives, but it was interesting when I talked with all three of you, you kind of had some fairly similar ways of describing what employee financial wellness is and what that means. And so what I think we should do for just a minute is sort of say, so what does it mean for an employee to be financially well? How do you know? What does it look like to have employee financial wellness? And maybe Anthony, you could start and we can sort of just quickly build a set of parameters before we go into a conversation of what are some of the specific innovations you're all working on to advance employee financial wellness.
Sure, no problem. So at Prudential, we define financial wellness, we put it into three pillars. Managing day-to-day finances, preparing to achieve key financial goals, and protecting against key financial risks. What that means is being able to make sure that you set up a budget when we're talking about managing day-to-day finances, saving your money, achieving financial goals, key financial goals, preparing for retirement, investing, and then protection products, which is what our wheelhouse on the group insurance side is, protecting against those unforeseen situations, unforeseen risks. How we define a person actually achieving that would be the employers, or the employee, shall I say, actually adopting those behaviors. You mentioned a number of statistics where $400, 50% of folks don't have $10,000 in their bank. And all those statistics that you mentioned, actually, those are all the people that I know, right? So when we talk about financial wellness, it's actually, and the reason they're in that situation is because they don't quite understand how to get out of that. It's not particularly always the amount of money someone has, but it's the understanding of how to, as I said, our three pillars is achieving those, managing your day-to-day expenses, achieving key financial goals, and protecting that money. So once a person's able to adopt that, we feel that they're on their way to starting to understand and be able to be financially well. It's funny when I think about we talked about products, and I said we kind of wanted to move away from the products, because when people understand what the purpose is, then they're more apt to be involved with, get involved, and so, or start to take action, shall I say. So I just recall sometimes when I would go out and talk about life insurance and buying your life insurance, and never thought about, well, how is the person going to buy that life insurance? When the person only thinks about, okay, I have this bill to pay, I have that bill to pay, and at the end of the week, I have no money. So we thought about, well, we need to help the person understand of how to start to budget that money. So we brought in budgeting. We started to think more holistically about how a person can actually achieve that financial wellness, achieve those goals. There's that Prudential commercial when we, I'm not sure if you've seen it, but there's the blue stickers and the yellow stickers, and the blue, they show the board of the past, and there's yellow and blue, and then they talk about the future. And there's only blue. People only prepare for those good times, and don't think about the bad times. And I also often think about when you are saving money, or even when you have money, you don't want to use that money to have to pay for a hospital bill. Or you don't want to use that money to have to pay for anything that that you didn't plan for. And so that's where the protection products come in, and understanding that there is a value in the protection product, which is key. As I said, when I was on the sales side and push products, we didn't necessarily connect the dots. And so having this opportunity to really engage the folks that typically look to their benefits department to be their planner, their financial planner, their budgeter, you name it, being able to provide those folks with the education to be their own financial CEO and get them to understand the decisions that they have to make, and that there are goals that they can actually achieve if they know how to do so. Once they adopt that behavior, we believe that they would be financially well. And so, as I said, the 3 pillars is how we define financial wellness: managing your day-to-day financing, achieving key financial goals, and protecting against financial risk, key financial risks.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Brian, I'm going to come to you next and see if you want to add to that.
Add?
Yeah.
That's out of my wheelhouse. I've never been good at doing exactly what Anthony said. How many other people are in the same boat as me? Raise your hand. Okay.
So none of us have been good.
Right. So I'll tell you the perspective. You can guess the perspective I look at it from. Let me give you an example. Because I know the hotel industry, so I'm going to use examples from the hotel industry in Boston. The average daily room rate for a hotel room in the city of Boston for 2016 was $290 a night. And it's the market goes like this because during the wintertime, the room rates go way down. During the summer and the fall, they go way up. And that includes all types of hotels. So $290. And in our union, we've been able to work in collaboration with the employers that a housekeeper never has to clean more than 15 rooms. But that's, how many people are staying in this hotel? Nice hotel, isn't it? Lowe's? When you go back up, if you stayed here last night, I know we're all pretty neat and everything, but even so, you came down here, you didn't give it a second thought, you're going to go back up there, clean towels, the bed's going to be, it's going to be like brand new again and smelling really great, right? I don't know what you're paying here. It's probably not $290 because Philadelphia isn't the same market. But you wouldn't be having this conference here unless that was the case, right? So the value that's created that causes people to pay up in Boston $290 a night is the work that those room attendants do. So 15 rooms, that's over $4,000. The room attendant up there gets $250 all in, right? About $31 an hour with the benefits and everything. So what I explain to our members is, wow, so it's $4,300 that the hotel takes in, and you're getting paid $250, and you create the value. What do you think about that? Do you think the hotel can afford to pay you more so you can go and see Anthony and really plan with some real cash? And so part of our collaboration is to, just to go on to what Dan was saying, create a crisis for employers, quite frankly. Because what Dan says is right. The first responsibility is to the shareholders. So sometimes our role is to create a crisis for the shareholders so the management can go, hey, it's going to cost us more to fight them than to pay that extra money or to pay the lion's share of the health care. So that's the role that we play, and I think that that's what we bring to the table.
Do you want to add anything to this?
Yeah, two things that I think are brief. I think to the definition piece, when you prompted us with that, and I was thinking about it, and this is, I guess, the curse of thinking about our assessment being comprehensive, is I was actually drawn to a different definition that is frequently used in our space, which is sustainability. And the definition of sustainability is the ability to meet the needs of today without compromising the needs of the future. And I actually think that actually coalesces really well with what we're thinking with financial wellness around the ability of an employer to meet the employee to meet their needs for today, while maintaining the ability for them to plan and save for the future as well. The other point that I would bring up, which is I think ties into some of the stats that you shared earlier, is, and I think this ties into your point as well, Brian, is that there is a component of financial wellness that is subjective and about perception, in that the statistics that are being pointed out is how people are feeling about their lot. And that's an important thing to consider when we're talking about these issues. It's whether they feel like they are in a position of fairness, of the ability to meet their needs, in addition to just whether they have that flat out quantitative number or something along those lines.
Yeah, I think that it's good that you brought that up, because I think it was interesting when I talked with all three of you on the phone. You all kind of came at some of the issues of just earn an income, be able to save, and things like that. But these issues of also being able to feel like you have control, and you have some control over your own finances and financial decision making, and that you have sufficient income that you can actually make decisions, and that you have. I remember, Anthony, when I was asking you, how do you know if it's succeeding? And you said, well, they're using the products. They can put money in them. They can save. They can do things. So. So I think you did come to some similar places from some very different directions.
And I just like to make a point, because I like what you said. So we all don't know, right? And that's the part about it, because we're all going to retire one day, and whether we're able to retire with a yacht or retire with some sense of dignity and being able to pay and live a certain life, it's important that we get there. And just from a personal perspective, as I was in the industry for 5 years, and when I've been 20 years, but for the first 5 years, you know how you can contribute to your 401k? I was of the mindset of keeping my money where it was in my pocket, right? So, for 5 years, I lost that 4% match, not because I couldn't put that couple dollars in or whatever, but because I had no knowledge of why it was important, right? So I try to get this point across. It's not about how much you have, because we're all going to have to be in a position where we will no longer be able to work, or where there are unforeseen risks that occur, and just budgeting, and so or day-to-day finances, and it causes a lot of stress. And we need to figure out how to get there. And so that financial education, understanding that, as I said, budgeting, it's easy to say, well, you need to buy this, 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 and this, and the person doesn't have any money at the end of the week. So then you have to help them understand, how do I get that money at the end of the week? How do I save whatever I can save? I think about having Netflix, cable, and in the computer you can go and get anything you want. And so where can I cut those costs to help me get there? Because it's imperative that we all do something. We all can't, we may not all be at the same level, but we all need to do something. And most of us don't know how to get there, including most of us. One point I want to make, 25% of the employees at Prudential have gone through the program, this Pathways program that we spoke about, because even though they're in the financial industry, they don't have the education to do it themselves. So that's what I just wanted to add.
Unfortunately, I'm married to someone who's good at that stuff.
Okay, that's great.
So I want to go quick to our specific innovations, because we are hoping to get to a little bit of audience Q&A if we can get there within our allotted time. And Dan, actually, I'm going to start with you on this. You work with an array of companies. You've seen them do a variety of things to promote the financial wellness of the employees that they work with. So, are there just a couple of examples that really stand out to you, and things that you think are kind of cool?
Yeah, and I think this will by no means be exhaustive, because there's a lot of opportunities and a lot of new fintech products and things like that are coming out. But there are two non-technology enabled examples that I wanted to share, one of which is a company called Rhino Foods, that you might not be familiar with them directly, but if you enjoy Ben & Jerry's ice cream, particularly half-baked, they are the cookie dough supplier of Ben & Jerry's ice cream. And so they're a food manufacturer based in Vermont. And there's two primary programs that they have that I wanted to share, one of which I've actually never seen elsewhere, which is, I think, really interesting. And that's, as a contract food manufacturer, they recognized, and this began in the early 90s, that they have quite a seasonal business. And they were always uncomfortable in dealing with seasonal workers because it required instability for those individuals that they cared about. And this is a family-owned business. They actually put together a committee of employees to identify ways to avoid those layoffs. And the solution was really interesting, which is that they soon realized that there were a lot of other manufacturers in the area that themselves have seasonal business, but those seasonal needs don't always align with the seasonal needs of Rhino Foods. And so they created a job exchange program in which they were partnering with those other companies to create stable employment for these individuals across these cycles, which is something that I've never seen before, but also incredibly powerful, at least to me. As a part of another initiative that they have, they've also innovated with some local banks to provide income advance programs up to $1,000 day of. And that ties into the other example that I wanted to share of that I was actually just talking about in the audience, which is Cooperative Home Care Associates, which is, as far as I'm aware, one of the largest cooperatives based in the United States, and they're based in the Bronx, New York. And they have a partnership with an organization called Neighborhood Trust, in which they are bringing in this financial services organization at the onboarding process with new employees to train them as well as provide a variety of services. And so access to credit ratings and understanding those credit ratings, access to some of these financial services that companies that are enabling services, the savings and things like that. And again, one of the interesting things that I saw there was actually having one of these neighborhood trust staff members at a designated time each week in the office of Cooperative Home Care Associates. And so that's enabling these conversations, not just having it be available through an online portal that's no one's ever using or no one even knows about, but actually the direct interaction to actually encourage the usage of it was really interesting to me.
Great. So you covered maintaining employment stability, which gives you income stability, some income advance, so for those times you need a little money soon, financial education. Brian, I'm going to come to you because you have been working with this interesting flexible defined benefit plan, which people don't think of defined benefit as being flexible.
Right.
So talk a little bit about that.
Is that a scary word to many of you employers? Defined benefit pension plans. Ooh, yeah. Well, it was for us too. And back around the last Great Depression that we had, shortly after that, we were in discussions with the employers, and one of the things that we realized was that we had a 401k program, and only 25% of the hotel workers were really participating, and there were efforts to educate people along the lines of what Anthony was talking, probably not as well as Anthony and his team does. And so we talked about defined benefit pension plans, and the employers said, look what's happening to them all, and the unfunded liabilities, and the poor financial investments, and the employer gets saddled with it, and it's horrible. And we agreed. So we contracted with an actuarial firm called Chiron in New York, and they actually developed a plan that's called the Variable Defined Benefit Plan. And the components of it are that instead of assuming a 7 to 8% return year over year, it's 5.5%. Baked into our policy, we have a very conservative investment policy, and so the financial advisors that are investing the money for the fund are bound by a very conservative policy. We're not looking for quick returns. If the funding falls below 90%, the trustees, and it's called the Taft-Hartley fund. Our health fund is Taft-Hartley, and it's managed jointly by equal numbers of management and union trustees. The trustees are mandated to adjust the benefits until the funding gets up over 100 again. And then there's also a mechanism to deal with once a certain percentage of folks retire, some of the investment has to even be more conservative, and there's only a 4% assumption on that return. And so it's doing well. It's well over 100% funded. At the end of 25 years, if a hotel worker up in Boston now participates for 25 years, the employee is going to retire with over $1,000 a month for life at 65. And that, coupled with Social Security and whatever else the employee can save through IRAs or 401k, actually allows people to retire with dignity.
Yeah, great, thank you. So that covers retirement, and Anthony, you cover all of these pieces of financial wellness. So and you've been doing a whole set of things around the wellness effect. So tell us a little bit about that and some of the innovations you've been working on.
Okay, so one of them is the program that I'm responsible for, Prudential Pathways, which is a on-site holistic financial wellness education program. And the way it works is a financial planner from Prudential goes and educates the employees or the employees' guests at the work site. We educate them everything from budgeting to Social Security to retirement, Medicare, Medicaid, all the way to estate planning, so that it touches everything. The great thing about it is it's no cost to the employer. It's non-solicitous, so we don't want although the employee, or they can choose to take action, but there's no pressure to take action. And then what's also great about it is the education is totally generic, so we're not pushing any kind of Prudential product. It's just the education. You know, when I think about Cy Sims, the educated consumer is our best customer. People need, before you try to push anything on anyone, you need to make sure that they understand the importance of it. So that whole goal of Prudential Pathways is to make sure the employees understand the importance, or make sure that they're aware of what's going on. After Prudential Pathways, which launched in 2015, we started growing and our reach as far as financial education. There now is a digital platform for those who don't necessarily have the opportunity to go to the in-person, and the in-person and the digital works together. And it's created what we call the wellness effect. And what we believe the wellness effect is once a person, that we talked about adopting those financial wellness behaviors, people become more, from a work perspective, more productive. And when you think about it, you think about like work-life balance. And when we think about work-life balance, we're talking about more of the life balancing the work. But when you think about work-life balance, when you have stresses at home, it's very difficult to balance that and go to work. So once they start to adopt those behaviors and start to take action, hopefully that relieves some of the stress. They become more productive at work. They become more engaged. As I mentioned, when you're your own CEO, there's a sense of confidence that you have, so you feel better. And then there's that ripple effect. I am a part of that ripple effect, as I said, and I'm being very honest. All of those statistics are where I come from. So when I go home, I talk about this, and people start to understand the importance. And we actually have a video that we put together from Prudential, if you'd play, that kind of speaks to all of what I've been trying to get across. So if you'd play the video, I'd appreciate it.
What if more workers could feel financially secure? What if they could move forward when life sets them back? What if everyone could retire on time? What if you could know what's keeping people from taking action to achieve what they really want? When people are inspired to overcome the behaviors that hold them back and can achieve financial wellness, workers, their families, organizations, and communities, we all benefit. That's the wellness effect. And Prudential can unlock its power with core strengths in building benefits plans, improving retirement outcomes, and growing and protecting investments for the long term. How do we do it? We dig deep to discover where employers and employees face risks. Working with organizations and their advisors, we use these insights to design plan solutions that help meet employee challenges and fit into existing benefits programs. And we help inspire people to shift behaviors and take action to improve their financial wellness with personal engagement programs and interactive tools. If we can help everyone live and work happier, great things happen all around us. That's the power of the wellness effect. We can do this.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so Anthony wins the bonus point for the multimedia preparation of the panelists. I really did want to see if there's any audience questions that we want to bring in. I think there are a couple of mics traveling. If people can just raise their hand, I will try to find you if you have any. So I see, yeah.
So Anthony, I wonder if Prudential's been doing this for a little while, for some time now. Do you have a sense? I know the take-up rate can be a challenge. Do you have a sense of what sort of, if they offer this service, an employer offers this to employees, what portion of employees respond? Or do you have any data on sort of the characteristics of people who are willing to take these programs on and folks who pass them up?
Yeah, so the interesting part about that is, when we initially went in, we had this demographics of white-collar workers, age 45 and up, getting ready to retire. And what we found is that's not true at all. We launched in 2015. The beginning of 2015, we have 250 customers at this point. They're from all industries: manufacturing, services, educational. And the folks that are actually going in and getting this education range from, the person that, the blue collar worker all the way up to the white collar worker. And people are actually taking action. So what I didn't mention is they have, I kind of touched on it, they have the ability to actually speak to the financial planner and start to take some action. And about 25 to 30% of the folks that are actually, going to the events are actually taking action. So that's a great thing. While we want to make sure that it's not solicitous, going back to everything I've been saying, we want to make sure that people get involved and take action. Now, as I mentioned, there's a long tail. There are things that I've learned that I know that I need to do it, and I'm going to do it sooner or later. But the fact that I know that I need to do it, sooner or later, hopefully I'll take some action. So we realize that it takes some people some time, and they may need to be, reminded of it. But we are seeing a 30% uptick or tick in as far as folks that are actually taking advantage and going to the next level. And then we're also seeing an increase in the retirement. So for the folks that have Prudential retirement, where we can see their contributions, we're seeing increases in contributions to their retirement plan. We're seeing folks that are actually taking the action and purchasing additional life insurance, managing their money. So it's a good thing. And again, it's across the board. It's not just the folks that we perceive to have money. It's everyone, young, old. And so that's a great part of what we learned about this whole program. It's all new to me as well, believe me.
Yes, right here.
So the nature of work is changing pretty rapidly, and a lot of our financial tools are predicated on the idea of stable work and an employer who is going to be a partner in your financial health. I myself am a self-employed consultant, and I thankfully have access to enough money where I'm putting aside in my retirement now on my own, and there's a tax benefit that definitely helps me. One, that tax benefit is under threat right now from the current administration. But two, I think a lot about like the Uber drivers and the people who are doing freelance graphic design work. How do we connect them, or how do we create new financial tools to help them have a prosperous future?
Okay. I want to actually get one more question. I think there was somebody here, and then we can take them both at the same time.
Hi. My question is, I think there are real generational differences around financial needs and stresses. Young workers who might have student loans, older workers who are facing retirement. I'm wondering if you've seen organizations that have been able to really, because I think that creates tensions within organizations around benefits and products and I'm wondering, and culture, and I'm wondering if you've been able to find organizations that have been able to kind of flexibly manage benefits and counseling to really meet the needs of a variety of populations across generations.
Okay, great. So we have a question about tools for sort of freelance and particularly like Uber drivers, those kinds of things, and addressing generational differences. So
Okay. Would you, I could take, so to your first question, and Sarah, who's with us, Prudential, we're trying to make sure we touch every individual, right? So the education is important for everyone. So everyone needs to understand how to budget, everyone needs to understand how to save, and even if you don't get, have your retirement plan through your employer, there are annuities, there are other tools that can be used. Prudential, we have a number of different avenues in which we can touch different types of employees. So me particular, I'm from the institutional side, so we're working with employers. We have, when I talked about our financial wellness, our digital tool, that's open to everyone. And folks can, we have a retail business that we can touch people and connect them to financial planners that can that work with individual low-income entrepreneurs, folks that aren't with an institution, folks that are have their own business. So we want to bring all of Prudential out. And so it's not just, so I'm part of the group insurance. We have the retirement, which is basically our customers, the institutional customer, but we also have our Pru advisors, we have our annuity side, and then we have our corporate social responsibility that wants to make sure that they touch, individuals that are in those underserved areas. So we're making sure that we get the education out there to everyone, as well as providing the solutions to everyone. So your point is very well taken, and Sarah said this earlier, we to myself, the great thing about what we're doing is we're making sure we hit all of the different communities, meaning from, whether it's the business community down to the individual, the business owner, the individual business owner. We're trying to touch everyone. And so that's what we're trying to do as far as Prudential is concerned. And then to your point, I mentioned pathways, holistic financial wellness education. My thought about 45 and over. This education includes student loan debt. And it's not just student loan. If you think about it, young people between the age of 20 and 30 are making some of the biggest decisions that they need to make, such as purchasing a house. So for so many years, we've kind of discounted young people. I remember on the sales side, you didn't even think about life insurance for young people. Oh, you don't need it. You don't have an insurable interest. Well, they do have insurable interest, and they may have started a family. So we've created tools that, as I said, that hit across the board so that we are touching all of the different generations. It's not just about retirement. We have a student loan genius tool that helps young people with student loans. Again, the budgeting is important. We have annuities that are geared towards lower paid individuals. So we're trying to make sure that we touch all of the workers, because it's bigger than what we're just trying. It's bigger than gaining, actually. I think about how important it is for everyone to achieve those financial goals, because it'll make everything better for everyone. People will be more productive. The companies will be able to, produce more, and people will be happier. So we're trying to make sure we play our role. And again, just from a business perspective, a person who understands what we're doing is more apt to be a better customer than someone that doesn't. So we're trying to touch everyone.
I've got to run, but I would like to. I would like to address that.
Closing thoughts, okay. So you may start.
I have to catch a train at 5:34, but I couldn't resist. Just a couple of thoughts. This so-called new economy, where we have Uber and other such ways of my view is people have to band together. There are examples with you Uber drivers doing exactly that and taking class action in order to get money that was being ripped off from them for their work by that company. It may be a new form of organizing. It may not be called the union, but working class people are always better off when they work together for their financial wellness. One thing, my grandparents, I grew up in New Jersey, North Jersey. They worked in factories. They worked sweatshop jobs. Those very same jobs were considered good middle-class jobs when my parents got them in manufacturing. A lot of those jobs have left the country, and people bemoan it like all the good jobs were manufacturing. But no job is ordained a good job. And what we're doing in Boston in the hotel industry is we're turning service industry jobs, good jobs, where people can retire with dignity because of what they get from their employers, all the way along the line up until when they retire and then after they retire. So my parting thought is people need to organize, working class people need to organize, work with enlightened employers, and I think there are plenty of them, and we can all benefit and share in a prosperous economy. So at that, I got to run. Thank you.
Drop the mic.
Thank you. All right, Dan,
very
you
nice
get the
meeting
last
you.
minute. Any closing thoughts?
Sure. I actually think it's a really similar idea to Brian, but the other side is I think the examples that I've seen that I wanted to share in terms of the best practices are recognizing the opportunities for partnership and collaboration. I think that similarly answers your question, which is that with the changing nature of work, it becomes more difficult for even an individual company, let alone an individual contractor or worker, to solve these issues on their own. And so the opportunity to look for other companies to collectively work together and identify these opportunities, as well as with financial institutions and with nonprofit organizations, et cetera, is where the solutions can build up that can be portable in a way and carry across companies and share the burden and do it efficiently.
Great. Any final words that you want to add?
No, I think
You're good?
I'm good.
All
yes.
right. So please join me in thanking our two remaining panelists.
Good job.
Thank you so much, Maureen, and thanks to both of you, and to Brian, wherever he is on some train heading back to. I mean, that was really helpful to us, to me, to understand what we mean by financial wellness and some of the factors that we need to take into account when we think about it. And thank you, Sarah, the Prudential Foundation. We really appreciate this grant, and we hope we can do a great job in Better Skills, Better Jobs 2.0. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. The Barnes Foundation reception is next. It's a incredible institution. If you haven't been there, you should really come, have a drink, take a look at the art. It's an extraordinarily nice building. Because of the weather, it's both indoor and outdoor, so it's going to be a wonderful reception. I urge you to come. The first bus leaves at 5:30, so we have about 25 minutes to go up and change and refresh, or maybe change your clothes if you'd like to, get rid of your materials, although, it's all on the phone, so you gotta carry it. And then on the way back, the last bus to go to the Barnes tonight leaves us at 6 o'clock. So don't wait. After that, you'll have to take a cab or walk. So 6 o'clock, last bus leaves. And we will probably have a bus available a little after 7 o'clock at the Barnes to come back here, okay? And then as we get closer to 7:30 and 8, then we'll have more buses available. So people that want to leave early to go to dinner, we'll have the first bus around 7 o'clock. But because of the number of buses, we have to wait till it's fairly full before we leave, okay? So everybody get out front 5:30 and see you in a half an hour at 6 o'clock at the Barnes. Thank you so much for a great day. Yes? The buses are on Market Street. So if you went down these stairs right here to the front, they're going to be right out front. Thank you. They're going to be heading that way.